Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Samvaad Talks on the theme on education and technology. Today, we are going to have the talk by Professor Chandrashekar Ramanathan, who is a Dean Academics, on the topic assessments, the Achilles heel of online education. Which better time other than the midterm week at IIITB that we should talk about
Absolutely.
assessments. Right. So today's session is going to be chaired by Professor Sujit Kumar Chakrabarti. He has a PhD from the Department of Computer Science and Automation, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has research interests in software engineering, formal methods, programming languages, education technology, and software testing. Apart from his tech avatar, he also has a very artistic avatar. He is known for his sketches and also his music. So, with that description, I would now like to invite Professor Sujit to take over the session. But a point on that we will take the questions for the speaker at the end of the talk. Please feel free to add them on the chat. So welcome once again to all the participants in the Zoom meeting as well as on the YouTube lives. So see you. Yeah, let's start. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jaya. I'm delighted to be chairing this session on a very pertinent topic by Professor RC on assessments, which afflicts or concerns all of us. And I'm also delighted to introduce Professor RC. Let me do so. So Dr. Chandrashekar Ramanathan, better known as RC, is a professor and dean academic at IIIT Bangalore. He has been working in the area of information technology for 25 years, over 25 years, in various capacities across industry and academia. He has been associated with IIITB for over 14 years, where he has been teaching and carrying out research in the area of data science, software engineering, and education technology. He received his PhD degree from Mississippi State University, USA. His thesis was in the area of object-oriented databases. He moved to academia after spending more than a decade in the software industry as a designer, project manager, and master software architect. His teaching interests are in the area of data modeling, data analytics, database design, and software architecture. His current research focus is in the area of data science and technology for education, model-based software engineering, and enterprise content management are his other areas of interest. He has authored several research papers and supervised many master's thesis work. 4 PhD students have graduated from IIIT Bangalore under his guidance. He is passionate about the use of technology for improving the quality of education. He serves in the technical advisory panels of many departments of Government of Karnataka, including Department of Education, Finance, and Center for Smart Governance. He also serves as subject matter expert on the Board of Studies of Education Institutions. Dr. Chandrashekar is board member of Board of IT Education Standards, or BITES. He was recognized in the list of top 10 data science academicians of India by Analytics India magazine for the years 2018 and again in 2019. I would like to add a word from my side about Professor RC. Professor RC is, as I know him, is a very charismatic teacher, and he is a person who understands data, is able to present it to lay people in the way that they understand. And I think that is a very rare quality that I have seen in him. He also is our dean academic. He keeps the academic rhythm of the institution in the proper place. And that reminds also the fact that he is a very good percussionist and he has a knack for rhythms. So welcome, Professor RC, and we look forward to listen to your talk.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Sujit, for the generous, very generous introduction. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you very much. And I didn't even realize. Thank you, Professor Jaya, for timing this particular talk. As you observed, during the week of our midterms. So it may not be very motivating to have this talk on at this time, but then of course, right? So there is no better time to reflect and move forward. So, so I'll get started. And so broadly, the theme for this talk is that I'm going to focus only on assessments, because as I mentioned in the abstract as well, there has been enough focus on technology for education for a long time, right? In fact, they, very, very newly when I joined IIITB in 2007, so that's when, under Dr. Ramani's chairmanship, so we started the Technology for Education IEEE conference in India, right? So it's been there, and I'm sure even before that specific conference, the work has been carried out in several places, or focused on technology for education. But it turns out that a majority of the work, if not all of the work, was focused on, how do you make what we call as learner-centric education, right? So how do you make the learning experience better for the learners, right? So that was essentially the the focus of majority of the work. In fact, I do remember during the during the initial days of the T4E conference, I almost attended back-to-back conferences, 4 to 5 back-to-back conferences on T4E, and pretty much all of them were on many different aspects of how to make use of technology to enhance the learning experience of the learners. And then 2019 happened, right? And that's when everybody woke up to the harsh reality that, there is more to education than delivering lectures. There is more to education than delivering learning material, right? So that is when the harsh reality of assessments kind of dawned on everybody. And I'm probably accurate in saying that we are still found a bit wanting on that one. So that got me into thinking, maybe there is no better time to identify those limitations and move forward and trying to do our best for bridging those particular gaps. In fact, the quality of enhancing the technology for education for learning has been so great that we should also say that it is, at least for the higher education space, the impact more or less, at least for the what you say, BAU, business as usual kind of activities, has been pretty seamless. I can say that, at least even wearing my hat as the Dean of Academics here at IIIT-Bangalore. But we still have the other big elephant in the room, so to speak, about which we should probably start talking about. So I have divided my talk into two parts. I will, in the first part, I will build up the motivation to to identifying these particular challenges by starting off on the overall online education. And then what does, I don't know if there exists any maturity models or maturity levels to classify online education. So this is my own, even my first attempt to do that. Maybe some amount of additional work will probably give us a more formal mechanism for classifying online education. So I will talk about the online education maturity levels. And then the rest of my talk is going to focus primarily, in fact, only on assessments, wherein I have come up with my own framework to say, how do you evaluate, how do you assess assessments? So that meta assessment framework is what I will be presenting in this second part. So, so learning is the process of acquiring, understanding, knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences, right? So there could be many definitions, but this is something that I found to be quite interesting and quite self-contained. So even if you use this as your working definition, this is very interesting, and the focus here and not just of this definition, but every other definition. So the additional elements that goes into the learning are kind of implicit. So that is why that's what I liked about this particular definition, because it doesn't even talk about any method to the learnings, because so it is quite open-ended. All right. So if this is our working definition, so we can probably keep this in mind as we go along and see to what extent we are able to achieve many of these elements of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, behavior, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences. Right. So the key protagonists in this whole thing are the guru and the shishya. Right. So that is going to be my another assumption, if I can. So here I'm not really going into truly self-driven people who are in the discovery path, and because that also is some kind of a learning, right? So I don't think I am even capable of talking about that kind of a learning. So I'm talking about the traditional guru shishya kind of a learning, where there is a learner, and then there is somebody who is providing that particular knowledge, behavior, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences, right? So in this context is where I want to look at the online education. The other important element that we have seen is that, again, this has got nothing to do with the online education so far, but then the educationists have found it useful to classify learning styles, right? So this is referred to as the VARK model, which is visual, auditory, reading, and kinesthetic. So which means that so there are lots of standard tests available. In fact, if I recall, Professor Prabhu even helped administer this test for IIITB students a long time back, some time back actually. So this is a pretty standard way of trying to understand your learners. So which is, there are people, if somebody is a visual learner, so they try to learn by looking at pictures. They are very uncomfortable reading a lot of text, whereas somebody whose style of learning is predominantly by reading, so they would prefer notes and books and so on. Again, auditory is something wherein people may prefer to hear, learning by hearing. So, which also, in some sense, it may relate to the way when we were young, we were told to read out loud. Right, that is at least that is essentially an attempt to say that if you happen to be an auditory kind of person, maybe you'll be able to learn quickly if by reading out aloud. And of course, kinesthetic is actually probably the most valuable one, wherein learning by doing. Right, so these are learning styles. But what got me thinking when I looked at these learning styles is that it is possibly something that can actually motivate the instructional elements in a typical learning activity, right? So if you put on your hat as an instructor, right? So how do you so obviously in a given class there will be mix of people who are visual, who are auditory, who are reading, and who are kinesthetic, right? So considering that we are not doing one-on-one kind of tutoring here, and if you're talking about a classroom style, then we should possibly look at evaluating our own instructional material and instructional topics, and choose the best combination of these things, right? So because what I feel is, especially now, if you translate this into the online world, the diversity of the learners is has exploded. right? So compared to a very cohesive cohort to whom you teach in a traditional classroom. So you're possibly teaching for BTech first years, you're possibly teaching for 9th standard students, right? But when it goes to online and with the so-called democratization of learning, then so we cannot be too sure about the demographics, the learning styles of the people. And we should possibly incorporate all these 4 elements as instructional elements into our own teaching, into our own instruction. So that is one important element that we should probably incorporate into our own online education space, right? Again, so this is something as a top level pointer that I'm leaving it here, but this will certainly be useful. Then, so I'm going to attempt to talk about certain classifying online education into multiple maturity levels. Okay, so which is wherein starting from level 1 to level 5. So we have seen lots of 5 levels, especially for me the SEI CMM 5 levels are there. So I thought, can we kind of come up with some kind of a maturity levels for online education as well. Okay, so at level 1, okay, so we have instructor-led live online sessions, level 2 instructor-led recorded sessions, and then level 3 is instructor-led courses with live classes, instructor-led recorded classes with assessments, institution-led online degrees and certifications. Okay, so there is a small word play that is happening here. I will kind of highlight as we go along. So when you talk about instructor-led live online sessions, so what are we talking about here? So there are these live online classes that are happening. These are possibly happening on some ad hoc topics, wherein anybody who considers himself competent on a given topic can go online and offer this particular online lecture, right? So where is this kind of a thing applicable? Typically, in tuitions right now, right? So when you're conducting one-on-one tuitions, typically the learners in this particular place are more of a secondary learners. So when I using the term called secondary learner, so what I'm talking about is this is not their primary mode of learning, right? So they are possibly going to a school or a college as their primary mode of learning, but this becomes a way to enhance their particular learning. So this probably is level 1. Okay, so so in this kind of level 1 instructor-led live online sessions, again I am deliberately using this term called session because it can be quite ad hoc, right? Suddenly you can call up. I believe now this is also, especially during the pandemic. In fact, if I remember correctly, the one of the earliest startups that came out of even IIITB, right? So Tutor Vista was probably the first one to operate in this particular mode, wherein they were offering mathematics tuitions for children, right? In using online platforms. So this is probably level 1 as far as the maturity model is concerned. So noticeably, there are no assessments applicable here at all, right? In fact, to these particular sessions, the students bring the assessments and takes the help of the tuition teacher to solve those assessments, right? So this is an exclusive learning kind of a level. Then we can have the second level would be instructor-led recorded sessions, wherein wherein the learners are could be students, working professionals, people who just want to learn something, right? It could be even something very specific to learning, how to cook a specific recipe, right? That in itself is learning as well. So we are talking about, again, instructors. They are all self-selected, self-proclaimed experts. So no, this is again no, it's a free world, so anybody can go online and then claim that, okay, this is how you do it. So we have learners who are, again, students, working professionals, self-learners. Again, this is, again, this could be both primary and secondary. So what I mean is that people could be using these recorded sessions to augment and enhance their learning, or they could just be just as a first time thing. No, I want to know how to use, say, this particular toolkit to do this particular task, right? So obviously I'm learning it for the first time. So this can serve as a primary learning resource for me. Okay. Once again, even in level 2, there are so no assessments that are applicable. So if you look at the primary difference between level 1 and level 2 is that level 1 is, for one thing, it is live and ad hoc and intended for one specific learner. Okay, whereas level 2 is intended for multiple learners, a diverse set of learners, and it is recorded. Okay, and I'm also as we move along up the maturity levels, it also is an indicative as to the importance that is there on the quality of the instruction that is being provided, right? So obviously, if you're delivering something at a level 2, at a level 2 maturity level, it is intended to be much for a much wider audience. So obviously, you have to make sure that the quality is good, right? Again, how do you define quality? How do you measure quality? There are many mechanisms into that. We will not get into that right now. Okay, so that is level 2. Now, level 3 is institution-led live classes. Okay, so this is where I'm moving from the term session to a class. Okay, so which means that so now we are talking about a cohesive set of sessions, for a particular topic, for a particular course. Okay, so that is the first jump between level 2 and level 3. Okay, and the second big jump between level 2 and level 3 is that in level 2 we had self-proclaimed experts, whereas in institution-led live classes, obviously these instructors are formally appointed professors, teachers, tutors. But the point is that they are formally appointed. Okay, so which means that suddenly, since we have increased the again expectations, because if you one implicit thing you can keep in your mind is, as we keep maturing from a lower level to higher level, up is the expectations of the quality also keeps increasing. So in institution-led live classes, obviously we want to be assured of the quality by having the institution appointed instructors for that particular course. Okay, and these are live classes. Okay, these are live online classes. Okay, and the learners, again, they are not general random people. These are all formally enrolled students. Okay, so so in terms of applicability, and this is exactly what we are seeing, and many, it was quite heartening to see many institutions go from 0 to 3 straight away, right? If you look at the ways the schools have started offering classes online, so it is amazing, right? So this also shows, much like the mobile revolution in India, right? So you can skip several generations. So this also indicates that you don't have to go from one maturity level to another maturity level in a step-by-step manner. In other words, thankfully, the teachers, the schools did not say, okay, only those teachers will be allowed to teach who have been doing tuitions in online mode in level 1. Okay, so thankfully they don't know about this maturity levels, I suppose. So that was good, right? So which means that this is great. And I also left the assessments here at an optional level here, because again, this is more based on my hindsight, I should admit, because to see, I see another reason for even judging what is required, what is not required, is that what is the bare minimum that is required to do justice to what we are trying to do, right? So in my view, so that the way the institute, the biggest challenge for everybody was to at least resume classes, okay, and then worry about the assessments, exams. We know all the tamasha that has happened and that is continuing to happen. But then, okay, are we able to get on to teaching, right? So that is what level 3 is all about. Are we able to get the teachers into the online platform? That is level 3 for you, okay, in a formal institution centric manner. So which means that there is a course, there is a syllabus, there is this, there is that. So there it is divided into multiple sessions. There is probably a timetable. So this is essentially an online substitute for physical classes that were being conducted in the classroom, right? And I also said assessments are not, I did not say not applicable, because sure, we can do assessments again, mainly for formative kind of an assessments, to keep track of how things are going for the learners. Okay, level 4, right? So level 4 is for institution-led recorded classes. Okay, now, so we are kind of getting into the formal space here. Okay, so recorded online videos for one thing. And of course, these are all cohesive sessions for a given course. So it is formal. Instructors are formally appointed professors and teachers, and learners are formally enrolled students. But here, when you get to level 4, assessments are mandatory, right? So the moment you make assessments mandatory, so that opens up the space for this big thing called MOOC. Okay, so because an online videos without assessments is just online videos, right? So the moment you bring in assessments to it, then it qualifies to earn this title of MOOC, right? So massive open online course, right? And of course, so our schools, colleges, universities, and institutions can also benefit by moving to level 4, wherein you can claim that even the assessments are being done online. Okay, so if you but here the predominant delivery method is recorded online videos. Okay, so we can slightly argue whether no, why not live online classes? I suppose we can mention that. In my view, when you talk about record online classes, that does not preclude live online classes, just like in IIITB. So in IIITB, every live online class is made available as a recorded online video. So to that extent, so I suppose making it open only for recorded online videos would open up this particular maturity level to many more institutions that are out there. Okay, which we are also saying, again, probably it's a little bit debatable, that live online is optional. Okay, so I know that is a bit, there may be questions around that. So we will leave that part as a question mark, but the recorded online videos is an essential and a necessary element for this particular maturity level. Okay, so finally, which is level 5, is complete formal education. Okay, when we say complete formal education, so we are talking about recognized degrees, certificates, and so on. So this is a completely new ball game altogether, right? So if you can see between level 4 and level 5, there is the biggest difference is the applicability part of it. Okay, so the biggest difference is the applicability part of it, because in level 4, the applicability is more at a course level. So you can get by delivering an odd course in an online mode, even if you are not doing everything, right? So whereas in the formal education, if you are talking about online degrees, which now everybody is very seriously talking about it, even in India, right? So no, if you want to talk about formal education being completely delivered online, then we are talking about a completely different level of maturity that is required as far as this 5 levels of maturity are concerned. Yeah. So this I thought is a good mechanism for us to understand this whole online education space and this little thing called assessments that is lurking in there. Okay. So one thing that you would notice is that as we move up the maturity levels, it is the assessments that is going to make a difference. Because live classes and recorded online videos, incidentally, I have brought in live classes back into formal education here. Okay, so maybe that should have been there in the previous slide as well, right? But the point is, between level 3 itself started talking about online classes and so on, right? Making it available as recorded videos is no big deal, right? But between level 3, 4, and 5, can you guess, what is the key discriminator? It is the assessments. We said it is optional in level 3. In level 4, we made it mandatory. In level 5, it is even more rigorous, formal, and mandatory, right? So that is why assessments are extremely important. And so this is where my assertion is that probably we can quickly even self-evaluate. Each one of you, I'm very proud to say that all of I'm sure each one of the faculty members at IIITB would be able to relate to all these 5 levels, and you would clearly be able to identify yourself and identify our own institution and identify other institutions and slot them in one of these 5 levels. Okay, so this is where I felt that assessments are extremely important, and just to do reverse engineering, so my conclusion is that we are not ready for level 5. So that is the declaration I have made in the title of my slide itself, until we address certain important human being has got I'm assuming Achilles had 2 heels. So I end up with identifying what those 2 heels are, which probably needs the topmost attention before we can even imagine operating at level 5, right? And I'm sure many institutions are operating at level 4, and virtually all institutions must be operating at level 3. Thanks, but no thanks to COVID-19. Okay. Great. So I think I'm doing very well on time. So this is exactly the time to move to the part 2 of my talk, which is, let us do an assessment of assessments. Okay, assessment of online assessments, to be specific. Okay, so how do we judge online assessments, and what are the strengths, weakness, limitations, and so on? Okay, again, I chose to go with a very simple working definition for assessments. Again, I do realize this is not, I can get away by not being, I'm not a educationist, so I can possibly get by with slightly taking some liberty with the formal definition here. So the working definition I'm going to go with is, assessment is nothing but a mechanism for measuring the extent of learning. Right. So there are, again, there are lots and lots of theories behind assessments. How should they be done? And in fact, we all have attended sessions conducted by Professor Prabhu at one point in time, Professor N.J. Rao at some other point, talking about these things in a much more formal context. Okay, but I'm going to take a more mundane, practical view that you and I can relate to as far as assessments are concerned, right? So the way I look at assessment is I divide them into two parts. Okay, one is the assessment activity, right? And the other is the assessment, the evaluation of that particular assessment activity. Okay, so what does assessment activity entail? So you have to create what is known as an assessment instrument, right? So you have to create something with which you want to conduct an assessment, right? In the education world, we can call it as a question paper, right? So, and then you actually carry out that particular assessment activity, which is gather everybody in a place and then you conduct an examination, right? So that is the conducting the particular assessment activity is concerned. And then you gather the response, right? So our staff diligently if you just go back to our good old classroom examinations. So we used to have our very nice hardworking staff going around, collecting the answer books, organizing them as per the roll number, and keeping it, getting it ready for evaluation, right? Assessment activity, just to summarize, right? So creating the question paper, conducting the exam, collecting the answer books. So that is the activity part of it. And then the assessment evaluation involves evaluating the answer books, which is grading, and depending upon the kind of assessment that we are doing, providing feedback. It is optional, because, for example, if we are conducting this particular assessment for formative assessments, in a continuous manner to give feedback to the learners, obviously feedback becomes quite important. But if you're conducting it more of a summative assessment, wherein only you have to, your final deliverable is a letter grade, then obviously there is no room for providing feedback. Okay, so that is assessment evaluation. Now, so let us kind of try to judge, how do you discuss the quality of the assessment activity? Okay, so if I want to talk about the quality of the assessment activity, we can judge about the quality of the assessment quality, and then the quality of the assessment instrument quality, and the quality of the activity itself, how well that particular activity was conducted, and what did we do? What is the quality of collecting those responses? Are we? Yeah. So I'll come to that, right? So let us look at the first part of it, which is the assessing the quality of the assessment instrument, right? So one example of assessment instrument is a question paper. Okay. So again, plenty has been talked about, plenty of dedicated seminars and webinars and books have been written on how to create a question paper. Okay, so I will not get into too much of it incidentally, right? So this is where I'm very tempted to go back to my earlier Samvaad talk in 2019, wherein so I talked about one particular platform, online platform for carrying out all these activities, right? So so that is something that may be of interest to the listeners, to the viewers of this particular webinar. So to go back there to get into the details of some of these things, right? But very at a high level. So when you want to judge the quality of the question paper, is it fit for the purpose? So no, there are many ways to answer that particular question. Is it fit for that purpose? Means, is it covering the syllabus appropriately? Is it covering the appropriate levels, right? And I thought I was challenging myself whether I can go through this particular talk without using the B word. The B word, what is the B word? The Bloom's taxonomy, right? So Bloom's Anderson taxonomy. I know. I'm I like that, right? So there are many ways of doing that. For example, if you have modeled your own instructional mechanisms based on the Bloom's taxonomy, so are there enough questions along those things, etc., etc., right? So that is is it fit for purpose? Okay. So again, I'll move ahead with a big caveat that just on that particular point, we have entire books being written. So so please feel free to kind of refer to them. But then comes so how quickly can these be created? Okay, so this becomes an important element of judging the assessment instrument's quality. Okay. Now let me give you an extreme example of a bad assessment instrument. Okay, so if it is just for the purpose of creating a question paper, so if I have to conduct an experiment that that say takes 10 days to do, it's a bad question. It's a bad question paper. Okay. So just for the purpose of the assessment, if you have to do some activity which is very complicated, or you have to buy some very expensive equipment, right? So these are all very bad assessment instruments, right? So because we want assessment instruments so that which can be created very quickly. Why is that important, right? Now, so far, I have not really tried to distinguish between online assessments or traditional assessments, right? Somehow I don't want to use offline assessments, right? So assessments which are conducted in a more traditional examination mode. But slowly you can see that you bring in this online perspective, things will change drastically. So the ability to quickly create now becomes extremely important in an online environment. If you're conducting an online quiz, right? So you should be able to do that just like that. Okay. Again, all of us are doing exams this particular week. I'm sure you would agree that how important that particular aspect is for conducting online examinations. Okay. How easily can it be administered? Okay, I'm talking about it means what? How easily the assessment instrument itself can be administered. What do we mean by that? Again, so maybe we'll switch to the paper world. So if you have a question paper, right? So typically what we do, we create one copy of the question paper, put it in a sealed envelope and give it to the office for administering, right? So what do they do? So they make multiple copies of it and so on. Okay. So in fact, I would like to plead guilty for, in fact, honestly speaking, that was my first year as a teacher at IIITB. In 2008, when I was teaching data modeling course, I distinctly remember, okay, somehow, I don't know what occurred to me. I said that, okay, let me create a nice question paper which had embedded spaces for answer books, for students to write answer. Okay. So guess how big my question paper was? It was 20 pages. Okay. I said, wow, I've created, what a beautiful piece of art that I have created, because that was my life's first question paper, formal examination question paper that I created. Okay. In fact, I can even flash that on the screen right now. Okay. It's there on my laptop. Okay. I just gave it. And guess what? And I still remember. So that's when our office staff, Chandrashekar, used to help us with preparing this, administering the question paper. And poor fellow, so he had to make some 50 copies of 25 pages each. because each page had one line, and our poor photocopying machine used to get stuck. It used to get overheated. So yeah, that's a bad example of a assessment instrument, right? So I think this is probably a silly example, but I mean, we can even think about more complicated examples wherein, as part of one other example I will tell you. There used to be, at least in my university, when I was doing my postgraduate, right? So there used to be professors who used to give us reading material as part of the examination. Same thing, right? So they used to give us papers to read. They used to give us 2 papers, 3 papers, 4 papers. I think they are all very, very difficult to administer. Okay, so at least in the online world, no, we can just upload PDF and be done with it, but it's not a fair thing to do in a regular kind of an exam. Okay, and then of course, how secure is that assessment instrument? Okay, so we have all heard of all the nightmares that everybody has in terms of securing the question papers, right? And yeah, I think in the I don't know how many of you know the board exams conducted by the state. The question papers are held in the treasury. Can you believe it? So there is a space allocated within the treasury department. So treasury department is the department where all the money is sitting. So that is where they have a special safe, high secure safe with all kind of tech that is put there to secure the physical question paper before it goes to the press and all that stuff, right? So that is also another very important element of judging the quality of my assessment instrument, because if the assessment instrument itself is not managed in a secure manner, then the quality itself is quite questionable, isn't it? So, and then assessment activity quality, the activity itself. So how easy is it to produce the response, right? So activity means what? Activity means the actual process of conducting the exam, right? So how easy was it? And right? So how easy is it to produce the response, which means for the writers, for the people who are writing the exam, how easy is it? So I'm sure in my 24-page question paper, they would have thanked me that, oh, this is so nice. I don't have to keep borrowing papers. I'll just write it in the space provided. Okay, probably they liked it. So, but then, yeah. So how easily can it be administered? So here we are not talking about printing. Now those printed ones, how easily are you able to distribute it within the classroom, or if it is in the online space, that adds its own set of challenges, isn't it? So now, if your assessment instrument is comprised of only one PDF file, for example, it is easy to administer. And on top of it, if the professor is going to say that, okay, you need to read this 10 PDF files. Now, each one having 100 page, each one being 10 megabytes, 15 megabytes. So I need to reach, I don't know, nearly 100 megabyte package in an online mode to all the learners. So you have to understand the other challenges with online, right? The internet, bandwidth, and so on. So if each one starts downloading 100 megabytes, even from a central server, it's going to choke my server. It's going to choke the bandwidth of the learner, right? So then again, that's an example of a bad assessment instrument, right? All right. So moving on, the quality of the response itself, right? So how easy is it to collect the responses? Okay. So this is, again, in the physical world, it's just a question of collecting the answer books. Whereas on the other hand, in the online world, how easy is it for the learner to submit the responses? Okay. So for example, if you're conducting questions in an MCQ kind of a test, it's extremely easy. All I do is press the next button. The previous question's submission takes place automatically. On the other hand, if we are doing it like the way we are doing today in Code Tantra, so they have to take a picture and then they have to trim it, crop it, and then upload it, right? So how easy is it to collect the responses? And to that, the quality of that particular activity also can be measured, right? How neatly they have their written, or how clean is the scan, handwriting, all these things determine the response quality. And of course, how secure is it? right? So security is not just about transmitting it, but maintaining the integrity of the submission. Be it the paper submission or an online submission, its integrity has to be guaranteed. So that is what we mean by the assessment response quality from a security perspective. Okay, so this is the second part of the quality where of assessment, which is the assessment of quality of the evaluation, right? So everybody has written the exam, submitted their answer books in whatever manner. Now it has come for evaluation. So how do you judge the evaluation? So obviously the first thing is how reliable is the grade that has been computed. Again, plenty has been written about it, okay? There are lots of metrics that are available. So later on, I'll tell you how to even evaluate in a quantitative manner what is the nature of the grade that has been computed. But then you can easily imagine, especially if there are multiple evaluators, how do you get consistency across those multiple evaluators? So is the final marks or the grade obtained, is it reflective of these true responses given? So many issues are there. Okay, so similar to the previous one. So there, the first one, is it fit for purpose? How reliable is the grade computed? These two are pure, nothing to do with technology for education. These are all hardcore education education topics, which I'm sure there is a lot for all of us to learn from educational experts. Okay, those who do research in education itself. But then moving on, so how quickly can the evaluation be completed? Again, so I'm bringing in elements which become relevant in the online world, right? How quickly can the evaluation be completed? So that is essentially a very strong reflection of the quality of the assessment evaluation, right? How much of resources are needed for evaluation? Okay, so it could be human resources, it could be computing resources, right? So is it so it's a big factor in judging the evaluation of the judging the quality of the evaluation, right? Let me give you an example. Again, a bad example, right? Suppose you have say 10 questions. If the assessment instrument has been created such that it requires 10 different experts to grade one answer book, oh, it's a terrible one, right? So that is the amount of resources that I need is quite huge. Okay, and then comes how easy is it to challenge the evaluation? This is more of an operational thing, but we should not forget that is a required element of the assessment, the evaluation quality, right? So there should be mechanisms for people to challenge the evaluation, get clarifications and modifications and so on, right? And finally, the feedback quality, the feedback of the evaluation itself is how quickly can it be reached to the learner. Okay, so this is now so nicely coupled with how quickly can the evaluation be completed. Okay, again, as I said, the feedback itself is possibly optional, right? Maybe if you are doing formative assessments as part of your course, then it becomes extremely important to complete the evaluation quickly and reach the feedback to the learner so that the learners can make improvements going forward. That loop can be closed only if it can be, the evaluation can be completed quickly and it can be reached to the learner. Okay, because one other challenge that we used to find is that in many cases, what will happen is the evaluation gets done, it is shown to them, right, and then it is taken back, right? So there is no possibility for them to reflect on it, to improve it, and so on, right? But again, what I see, at least I don't see that happening in higher education, but at least in school education, no, the good old one. So they do the corrections and give whatever feedback as part of the answer sheet, and then give it away to the students so that they can keep it with them. So that's a great quality actually, right? And then the feedback itself, can it be made actionable? Okay, so when I say can it be made actionable, there are two parts to it. Is it possible to convey and communicate that based on this particular feedback, this is what action you should take. You know what, you messed up this particular question, you better go and review this particular section in this particular chapter. So that is making it actionable, right? So making the feedback actionable, right? More than saying that, no, this is correct or this is incorrect, or even saying why it is incorrect, right? So that makes it more actionable. But then there are two parts to it. One is the actionable information available? And from a learner's perspective, how easy is it to take that action? Okay, so in the part of saying that, okay, I'll make it actionable, if I give a pointer to an IIII transactions paper, which is available only in print form, then that's not really actionable, right? So you have told the learner what to do, but then not possible to complete it, right? So this is about the quality. So what we will do now is we will okay, online assessment. I'll just be so what we'll do is we'll take these two parts, right? This part and this part, and try to see where we are. In other words, we'll try to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or even try to find out where that Achilles heel is, right? So I'm going to skip this part. So I'm going to begin about this whole thing. See, this exercise is important because as of now, as we speak, especially for online assessment. So now I'm going to switch completely to online assessments. Although many of the things that we talked about is true in general for all assessments, I'm going to switch to online assessments now. Picture abhi baki hai, as they say, right? So this is where we are getting to the meat of the stuff. So the standards are emerging. There are no standards available. See, if there were standards already available for online assessments, we could have simply said that everybody should follow this and be done with it. But no, this is where there are the SCORM standards, the IMS global standards, LTI standards, the most recent one. All these standards had elements intended for online delivery of learning. Okay, very little was being spoken about for assessments. No, there are a few things here and there, but nothing as rigorous as we would want, which will meet our own assessment framework that we just saw. Okay. Secondly, no rules and regulations, I should add, as yet. Okay. We all know UGC has gone, is very bullish about starting online degree programs and online, everything, full-fledged degree programs in online mode. Okay, so I'm sure it is just a matter of time that they will come up with rules and regulations for assessments. As of now, it is not there. It will come. As they say, mark my words. All right. So tools are continuously evolving. Again, thanks, but no thanks to COVID. I mean, I'm very delighted. I'm very excited, right? So there are so many people who are looking into it. And the important point here is that the stakeholder footprint and dependency on them has increased. Okay, what do I mean by that? Previously, it was good enough to rely on myself, my trusted printer and photocopy machine, and that's it. For small classes, I didn't even need anybody else to proctor, right? I'm sure many of us have done that, right? So we just walk into the classroom with our stack of question papers, we administer it, we walk away, right? So I don't even have to tell you the amount of dependency that we have in terms of our online assessments as we speak, right? So I'm sure many of us have another code tantra auto proctoring window online as we speak, right? So there is huge amount of this thing. So what we will do is we will go through these two questions that we asked and try to see how does online assessments fare in this one. Okay, again, this is something that I have been trying to formally write up in the form of a paper for for formalizing how do you even come to terms with this whole online assessments thing. Okay, All right, so let us talk about assessment instruments quality, right? So the first question we had was, is it fit for purpose? So what do we have in the online assessments world? Moodle supports, as many of you know, and I think the timing is also very good. I think each one of us attended the session on OBE, outcome-based education. So just like OBE, there are many paradigms for formal paradigms for imparting education, right? So it doesn't matter. So so the important thing here is that we need some kind of a IT software support to be able to implement that. So Moodle supports what is known as competency-based learning. So if you follow the competency-based learning model, then it incorporates elements into the platform itself, which will help you stay on track with respect to the fitness for purpose. Okay. And then I have been working with many startups. Quick Learn is one such startup which now incorporates outcome-based education, OBE, as part of their own platform. Okay, so yeah, so things are there. So is it fit for purpose? Things can be done. So what is the so the verdict is that there is a steep learning curve. So I don't know, in terms of its where it is, I would probably give it 2 stars out of 5. Okay, 2 stars because it is more than 0. Definitely it is more than 1 because there we do see real IT platforms with which you can deliver these things. But then because of the steep learning curve and non-standardization, I don't think we are beyond 2 there. Okay. The second question, how quickly can these be created? This is essentially the ease of use of the platform for creating question papers, right? In my view, again, and I think all of us have been doing it for more than a year now. We must have conducted at least 10 examinations online. So we should say that now we are pretty well versed with creating online question papers. So I would say all platforms provide easy to use authoring interfaces, right? Now medium learning curve, the biggest grouse is limited amount of question types in these online assessments, especially which are geared towards automatic evaluation. So I'll come to the evaluation part of it. But I really wish that we can do more. But this is definitely 3 stars here because as long as you are not asking for more automated evaluations and so on, we can create pretty much any type of assessment instrument, right? So I give it 3 stars. Okay. Sorry, at this point in time, these stars don't have any research backing it. Okay. So maybe I can find a PhD students who will do this for me, but these are all my intuition and my own experience based on which I'm giving these stars there. Okay, how easily can it be administered? See, as we go along, if something can be done in Moodle, I'm just saying it should be done by everybody. So to me, the gold standard is Moodle. I mean, people may disagree, and honestly, I may be wrong too, but I'm quite comfortable with that platform. I think I know the features fairly well. So I kind of benchmark everything against what Moodle is capable of doing. And yeah, so as far as Moodle is concerned, administering the assessment instruments is very convenient. It supports, question bank can be separated from a question paper. So a single question can appear in many question papers. Of course, a question paper can contain many questions and so on. So, and there is some limited tagging capability that is available. But again, my grouse on that one, for which it deserves only 3 stars, is that there is no easy way to control the quality of the question paper, because this relates to the first point as well, right? So is it fit for purpose? When it says is it fit for purpose, So I should be able to formally be able to say that these are all the topics of my syllabus, and then all my questions cover all the topics of my syllabus. There's no way to do that today. Okay, so I cannot control. No, again, going back, if you go back to Bloom's taxonomy and so on. So if I want a question paper with a specific mix of the Bloom's categories, there's no automatic way of doing that. So there is still quite a bit of things to be done. If I can plug my own work here, OAES can do that. Okay, the online assessment and evaluation system that IIITB delivered as a mighty project. So we took a lot of pains to do that. In fact, one of our PhD students worked on that very closely. Okay, and the fourth question, security, right? All platforms secure the question papers based on role-based access control, nothing very earth-shaking. I did not find anything very special that anybody has done because it is a question paper. They did not create the Treasury Department for housing the question papers. So question papers have been stored just like any other content in a system. And in fact, that is also something that I've not been very comfortable with. In fact, they keep the not only the question bank, they keep the question paper, and they even keep the responses on the same server. Okay, which is not this thing, which means that there's nothing special that is being done because it's a question paper. 2 stars. Okay, assessment activity quality. The student exam interface, no, this is activity, right? Remember, what is activity? The actual act of taking the examination. Okay, so I think I straight away I can give 4 stars, big thumbs up, right? So these are things are improving. I don't even have to talk about, maybe I will only highlight the one part. No, the newer platforms, they're all great. You can mark questions for later review. You can do all kinds of things, right? But the one point I want to highlight is that you know, even for handwritten examinations, so there have been very innovative things that we have used at IIITB, right? Called digital. Okay, tal is lock. Okay, not the Sarigama tal, which Professor Sujit talked about. That's not the tal we are talking about. So the digitala, right, is little more innovations, nice custom built tablet for writing examinations, right? So that's something. So I think you know, I would even go to the extent of giving 4.5 stars, right? So honestly, maybe we have to check with the students what more they would like to see. But from my point of view, it's just great. Okay. Yeah, how easily can it be administered? So all platforms provide very interesting options for creating of questions which is specific to learners, right? So we can do randomization, right? In Moodle, we can randomize the questions. Now, a student, if they're sitting side by side, this student who's sitting here and the student sitting next to them, they can get different questions, question papers, right? So we can randomize within options. So many options are there. And very interestingly, Moodle can also support adaptive question papers. So what it means is that you can even modify the next question that is being asked based on the response to the previous question. Okay, it's great. So again, the best one I have seen out there is Moodle as far as the question paper, the ability to do that, right? And I'm sure everybody will catch up. It's not rocket science. It is just in terms of prioritizing what they want to do. Okay, so here comes our security. Okay, straight away, I'll put a 1 star on that one. Because in terms of the examination delivery, right, we still have to rely on classroom proctored mode as the most secure option available. Okay, with due respect to all the you know, AI ML driven techniques being launched by lots and lots of startups. They are all fantastic efforts, but I'm afraid they are not there. Okay, the basic security anyway has been there. No, HTTPS, password protection, and so on. Okay, so So where we are not there is that remote proctoring for online exams are being done. Okay, as I said, many of us are doing it right now at this very instant, but I don't think they are satisfactory nor foolproof. Okay, for many reasons, right? Because mainly because it is not the solutions that are being put out there. They don't take into considerations lots of practical constraints. Okay, just take a very simple requirement of online proctoring. It says that you need to be facing the web camera constantly. Okay, right? So the student, even if the eye contact is not there, so if they are referring to something that they have written it down, right, it immediately flags, oh, you are looking away from the screen, right? That's terrible. Okay, and don't even get me started on some of the contraptions that have been created. In one of the technology for education conferences, somebody created a very weird looking mouse with sensors on top of it. I mean, if you take your hand out of from the mouse, away from the mouse, it flags you. Come on, right? So that is quite disappointing, actually, right? So I think there is still a lot to be done by keeping in mind the practical constraints and it's even to the extent, right, especially when you're conducting exams from home, so there are a lot of privacy concerns as well, right? So we have to kind of I don't know what's the answer, and this is something that that has to be prioritized pronto. Yeah, so assessment response quality, collecting student responses, all the platforms are great, and I don't think we have any issues with this. So I'm just going to skip through this one. And yeah, the response quality. So this is something, how reliable is the grade computed? I don't know how many of you have explored that. I have given a link to that here. Moodle does provide lots of interesting metrics about the quality of the exam that you have conducted. It talks about the discrimination index of the exam, the validity metrics of the exams, and lots of interesting metrics. You can keep looking at it for a long time, right? So very nice. But nevertheless, they are bare minimum. And also, what the kind of metrics that are there, they are primarily driven by the theory of education theorists. But then what I felt was, in an online world, there has to be newer metrics that has to be shared with us as well, right? For example, how much time did they take to complete a given response, right? So now answering a response in a half a second versus being on the same question for, say, 3 minutes, it reflects a lot on the question itself and on the kind of response that has been given. So I wish more analytics work be done on that particular field. But yeah, so maybe 3 stars is where I have said, because it's not as if nothing is there. Even I don't know how many of my colleagues have explored what is available on Code Tantra, right? So they give you lots of interesting statistics there. Again, not all of it is very useful. So they even say, how many times did the user switch to a different window? Okay, which may be useful, may not be useful, but then, yeah, it is available. Quality of the responses is essentially evaluated by the speed of evaluation. So which means that one of the critical elements there is that auto evaluation must be there. For example, for MCQs, special interface is needed for manual evaluation. So I think the assessment response quality can be made consistent by creating the right question types. Mind you, I am assuming here things that can be auto-evaluated. So if you are able to create your assessments with auto-evaluation, then you can achieve a fair amount of speed with which you can complete your assessments, right? And also, right, they also, even if you have to do manual assessments, right, any day I can tell you, I still remember grading certain questions all by myself for the core courses. uh, you know Even if the number of questions that I have to grade is identical, I don't think we need a big research to do to prove that it takes much lesser time to grade in an online platform as opposed to doing grading in a paper-based environment. Because, just imagine, right? I have to search for the question. I have to do totaling. There could be, so many things. Yeah. So that is looking good. No, anytime, anywhere evaluation, right? Yeah, sitting in the beach, we can do the evaluation. So I'm quite optimistic on that front. So resource requirements, and because the in terms of the resource requirements, I don't think there is any challenge these days, because with so much of computing power available in the cloud, we are in a position to give as much of compute resources for automatic evaluation for lakhs of people, right? So we all have been tracking how well the JEE results, how quickly the JEE results for lakhs of students have been declared, right? Okay, so but in terms of the verdict, in terms of the resources required, so only limited question types can be auto-evaluated. Okay, so as I mentioned, so if your assessment includes other types of evaluations, right, something which requires a deep evaluation of a circuit, or you have to evaluate an essay, read an essay and things like that. So these are all very, very manually intensive. So in terms of the resource requirements, whether it is online or offline, I think it's slightly on the higher side. I wish that the technology probably, again, there has been research that has been going on in the evaluation, automatic evaluation of essays and so on, right? So maybe we can draw some of it, but I don't think none of them are in the production space. And this is my last point on the quality of the feedback that can be given. Again, Moodle can do that extremely well. So you can give actionable feedback, including at a question level. Yeah. So but again, since Moodle is the only one that is doing it, I gave it a 3-star. All right, so I'm pretty much done. This is just a quick list of references, which the things that we talked about, we touched upon in bits and pieces, right? So this includes the work by my PhD students, right? Shilpi Banerjee, Vaishnavi, and then Aparna Lalinkar. So all of them had worked, and as you can see, anyway, it was a pleasure to collaborate with Professor Ramani and Professor N.J. Rao. And in fact, I should have listed a couple of my publications with Professor Prabhu as well, wherein we talked about how to use SCORM standards for online education. So a lot of good amount of work is going on, but then probably we are not close to taking it live. Okay. So yeah, the two Achilles heel, if you ask me, remote online exams, urgently need a secure and practical way to conduct remote online assessments. And I think we need to work more on new question types. Even though as part of our OAES project, we even created, if I remember correctly, 14 new assessments, question types. I'm not happy with them, so we still need more. I think that's essentially where the two most urgent SOS kind of a thing for all educationists. How about that, Sujit? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor RC. That was very illuminating and interesting as usual, very engaging, and particularly for all of us teachers, many things to take away. And personally, since I'm interested in this area, I take away several actionable points from this. So, I will not waste time in repeating any of my observations. Instead, if there are any questions from the audience, this would be the right time to take them. Professor Prasanna had written something, and apparently
Yes,
he...
I'm just reading that, right? How much is
Right.
known about the way a mother and father assess the baby's mastery of the mother tongue? Any lessons on online from that? Great question, Professor Prasanna. So this is something that so we have to rely on the experts, as I mentioned. So we definitely have to go back to core learning theories. And in fact, my student Aparna tried to go back to Schoenfield's theory of learning and try to mimic that as part of the online platform for teaching mathematics, right? So I think we all have to go back, keep looking back at some of the classic work that has been done and bring it online. But yeah, specifically, I don't have a specific answer to your question.
So anyone in the audience, if you don't mind, you could probably come on mic and speak if you have a question.
Yeah, this is Prabhu here.
Yes, Professor.
Yeah, I was interested in one particular type of instruction and assessment of students. As a matter of fact, we used it in IIITB for this probability theory and introduction to statistics.
Right.
You know, for the incoming students, we had
yes, sir.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And yeah, Dr. Josna Bapat and I taught it.
Yes.
And we followed the personalized system of instruction.
Yes.
And it was self-paced learning. It's very interesting. You know, we broke the whole thing up into modules. And all that we said was, if you want to go to module 2, you have to pass module 1. So module I to J, pass I, we will allow you to go to J. And it's self-paced, it's up to you. All the material is given to them and we meet. You know, there's a timetable, we meet in the classroom. Anybody who has any doubt in whichever module he's studying, he's welcome to ask us and so on. So we got really fantastic results. There are some people who completed the course in half the time and did extremely well. So, and this whole thing is centered on preparing question papers and assessing,
yes.
Evaluating them. I think this was really fantastic.
Yes.
There's a psychological motivation also. When some people run faster than you, you are also kind of, forced to keep pace with them. So this business of not attending classes, not applying your mind to the course, that kind of reduces. I thought that you would say something about this because it happened in IIITB.
Absolutely, Professor. Absolutely. Yes, indeed. In fact, I do remember. So essentially that is the driver's license model that you like the way you used to explain. See, in my view, I think their assessments do play an extremely critical role there. But whether in terms of the online space, my feeling is that there are, in fact, there are no limitations. There are existing assessment methods and mechanisms are good enough for addressing those kinds of, if I can call them formative kind of an assessments, because you take them and then you improve and then you go forward. But and if I remember correctly, so that did not include the element of the so-called final grade kind of a thing. So so that is why I thought right now all our tension and headache is about how do you come up with a reliable final grade by conducting all these remote online assessments. Thank you, sir.
Can I say something about the final grade aspect?
Yes, please.
It was a pass-fail option.
Yes.
Okay, you have to just clear the course.
I remember
pass.
that.
So that was why. I remember. That was why we said if you go through all the modules.
Yes.
Successfully, then you have passed.
I remember.
But that doesn't mean that we didn't have in mind. If there was need for us to give a proper assessment and place the student at the end of the course in any one of the several grades, we could have easily done it. Not an issue at all. Because we didn't do it, it doesn't mean that it's not possible.
Yes, yes, I agree. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, I think there is a question from Dibakar saying, any thoughts on how to evaluate the course content, the syllabus, example, the benchmarks in the context of students' learning and its future applicability? Okay, so here again, I would like to distinguish between course content and the syllabus itself, right? Because syllabus is possibly the list of topics, and typically the term called content is used in a more formal term is essentially the instructional material. So there are two different things, but I think what you want to find out is the relevance of the syllabus itself, how to evaluate the syllabus. Now there are many models that are being proposed, but even at a national level, if you see, one way in which it is being proposed to, not proposed, it is being implemented is through these accreditation standards, right? So the National Board of Accreditation has come up with its own set of frameworks, which says this should be the syllabus, right? So they have starting from the Washington Accord to program outcomes, to program specific outcomes, down to course outcomes. So it's a very easily programmable way of evaluating how well your syllabus is. Of course, the foundation of that particular whole thing is debatable, whether that in itself is good or not. But obviously, we have to rely on certain standards, and standards are available in the form of, say, NBA accreditation. Probably that is the most relevant one here, for India at least.
Okay, so since there are no more questions on the chat box, and even though I would personally want this discussion to keep on going, I think one of the difficult responsibilities put on me is to see to it that it's wound up at the right time. So we are almost there, 3:30. So let's thank once again Professor RC for this wonderful talk, and hope to hear more from you about all the visionary ideas that you proposed this time. And with that, I will hand over the mic back to the series coordinator, Jaya.
Thank you, Professor Sujit. Thank you.
Thank you, Professors Chandrashekar and Sujit, for the wonderful session. Yeah, so big hand of applause for all of you.
Thank you.
So I think we have come to the end of the session. So thank you all. We'll take a break so that we get back to assessments for the next week and complete the assessments given it's the midterm week. So we will resume the talks on education and technology on October 4th with Professor Prof giving his talk on education again. Okay, thank you so much.
Looking forward. Thank you. Bye-bye.